Okay, so I'm going to keep everyone muted for the first couple minutes, and then there will be quite a large portion of the meeting which is dedicated to discussion and feedback. You can also put your comments or thoughts in the chat at any time, and that's just at the bottom of your screen in the black bar, the speech bubble that says chat. Just click that, type in whatever you're thinking, and we can respond to that. And if there's things that come up during or after the meeting that you'd like to share, you can go ahead and email me at adam@collaboplanning.com. So I'm going to kind of just give you all a quick overview. And I know just seeing who's on the call here, many of you are familiar with this process and what it's all about. But just as a quick refresher, my name is Adam Rosa. I'm with Collabo Planning and Design. We are the planning coordinators for the team, which really means that we're working with everyone to facilitate this Choice Neighborhoods process over the 2-year period. So Choice Neighborhoods is really focused on these 3 elements overall, and that is people, housing, and neighborhoods. So it's not just about rebuilding public housing. It's also about improving the entire neighborhood around the target housing site, which in this case is the entire Murchison community. And then the people projects are really a lot of the things that we're going to be brainstorming through these working groups that have to do with supportive services and improving quality of life for residents of the community. So again, we're very thankful that you're all here to work with us today. And just kind of an overview of our team. So the applicant and the co-applicant are the Fayetteville Metropolitan Housing Authority in the city of Fayetteville. I'm with Collabo on the bottom there, the planning coordinators. And then we also have our community ambassadors, 2 of whom are on the line here, Ms. Cynthia Leeks and Ms. Joanette Henderson. And they've been working with us over the last, I guess, year or so now on helping to conduct the community process, getting the word out about meetings, helping to really establish some of the vision for the plan. We also have our steering committee, which is a kind of a larger working group that we've been meeting with periodically throughout the 2-year process. And the area that we're focused on, excuse me, the Murchison community with Murchison Road as its center. We're looking at everything from just north of Country Club Drive, Pamelee, all the way down just beyond Fayetteville State University. And on the east and west, all the way to Cross Creek and Little Cross Creek. So it's a fairly large area, about 3 miles. There's 6,800 residents that live in this area and many more that work there and go to school there. It's an opportunity zone. It's a designated neighborhood revitalization strategy area by the city of Fayetteville. The target housing site is the Murchison townhouse property. So we will be looking at, over the next year, coming up with strategies for how to redevelop this property, potentially bringing housing back to this site, but also looking at options for relocation or other affordable housing throughout the neighborhood. So we actually have a housing and commercial working group that will be starting to delve into that as well. And the overall process, we have the 2-year-long period here, and we're kind of right in the middle doing the strategies, programs, and projects. We turn the calendar from year 1 to year 2. And so we will be doing these working groups in January, February, and March. And this is really where a lot of the content for the plan gets generated. So all of the ideas and thoughts that come out of these groups will find their way in some way, shape, or form into the plan as we move forward into 2022. So the 5 working groups, you can see them on screen here. This is history, equity, and inclusion. But we also have housing and commercial development, education and job training, safety and security, and transportation and open space. And there is overlap between these groups, especially this group, I think kind of touches on many different topics. So we will be kind of sharing this information that comes out of this group with the larger team, and we'll be looking for places where the project ideas and the strategies start to come together. And you're also welcome to sign up for more than one group as well. And I know some of you have done that. So I really want to get us started here. I don't want to do much talking in this meeting. I want you all to really be leading this meeting and giving us your feedback. So the purpose of the meeting really is going to be to develop what we call desired outcomes and initial strategies for this particular topic. The second meeting will be prioritizing those strategies and kind of ranking them and figuring out what floats to the top. And then the third meeting, we will be identifying potential partners and resources to really make sure we can get this done. So you all should have received a number of different kind of attachments with your email invitation. One was a document of background information that included a lot of demographics, feedback from larger community meetings, feedback from our resident survey that we conducted on the Murchison townhouse property. I also included the meeting schedule, so you can see when we're going to be meeting over the next few months. And then the big thing for today is this worksheet. And I'm hoping that you all had a chance to at least take a look at this. This is really going to be the way we organize this discussion and capture the feedback. So I'll go through all these different points that are on the worksheet. And if you had a chance to write things in, you can share that with the group. If not, we can brainstorm in real time. So let me get us started with that. But before I go on, does anyone have any questions or thoughts? So I got a couple more people coming in here. Any questions? We're all good? All right, perfect. Well, I'm going to pull up our worksheet here. We're going to get started. Bear with me just one second. Okay, so what you're all seeing on the screen is called a mural, and it's an online platform for doing these kinds of meetings and brainstorming and kind of sharing notes and things like that. So I've organized the entire working group, all 5 working groups, onto one kind of digital mural or digital poster. So we're going to focus obviously on history, equity, and inclusion, which is over on the left side. But as we go through the week, we'll be meeting with these other groups, and their worksheets will begin to fill out. And so I'll be sharing that. I'll share this link out after the meeting, so you can come back in here and take a look at any of the feedback that the other groups have provided as well. And again, a lot of it is kind of seeing where things overlap and where we're starting to create some synergy between the groups. So I'm going to zoom us in right here to the first worksheet. And as you can see, there's a couple different questions on this worksheet, but this is about generally what is working in the community and what is not working in the community. It's a little bit of an assessment before we get started on more of the detailed kind of strategizing. So first question related to history is really thinking about the current image of the neighborhood. How are important people, places, and events being recognized? And how can the neighborhood's rich past be kind of a springboard for a vibrant future? So again, think about what's working currently. Like, if you know a program or something related to history that you think is pretty is working pretty well, and that it's kind of furthering our goals, we'd love to hear about that. And then if there's things that you just don't think are working or just not there yet, we also want that as well. So I'm gonna call on our community ambassadors first to share some of their thoughts. Cynthia, do you want to jump in and talk a little bit about what you think is working and not working from a history point of view?
Sure. Hello. First of all, hello everybody. Thanks for calling on me first, Adam. The one thing that I think is working very, very well is Fayetteville State University. That I just have to, and we all know that's working. There are a few things that I've heard from community members, and plus, and also I have some ideas of how Fayetteville State could better outreach and partner with the surrounding community. But that's one big part of the history in this corridor that is working. There are a few churches in the area. I think they have, due to COVID, that has kind of restricted a lot of outreach programs through the churches. But, maybe, with a little brainstorming, we could go back and reach out to those churches and just to make sure that, they are still wanting to play a major role in building the community on in this area, in the area of history and inclusion.
Mhm.
That's all I can think of right off the top of my head. I'm sure as we go along here, we'll certainly, I don't
Mhm.
know about everybody else, but I feel like I'm on information overload these days. But
Yeah,
you
we
know,
all
I
are. We
mean,
all are.
really, yeah, I mean, really information overload. So forgive me if I seem to go astray, but I was talking to one of my sorors here. I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta sorority, and I'm always engaging in conversation with just everybody about what's going on Murchison Road corridor, and you know. That wall that is the wall of fame, or the historic wall that's on Langdon Street,
Mhm.
that works too. You know Everybody, all the comments and things that I've input that I've had from neighbors and friends and people in the community say that that is a wonderful way to show the history in the corridor. And maybe we can move on to the sidewalks and the light poles and all kinds of stuff in
Mhm.
showing off history. But those are the few things that I can think of.
Great. Thank you for that. Johnette, do you want to jump in, and do you have any thoughts on what you think is working related to history, or what may not be working?
I don't know if you're going to be able to hear me. I am
Yep.
fresh off of the COVID
Oh,
protocol. I'm still in it, so my voice has not come back. So I might sound a little funny. I sound like Froggy from the Little Rascals, I've been told. But I would say, I would just piggyback off of what Cynthia just put in there, that the current mural on Langdon is something that I think is working very well. It's a snapshot of what we have in terms of history and important people and places being recognized. I guess a big thing we could do is support that, because I know Ms. Felder has some plans to do some additional work in the community to find out, who did what, and how it contributed to the development of the Murchison Road corridor. So those are some preliminary feedback that I can provide. And I may start typing in the chat. So if I don't respond to you, that means I'm working with my voice.
sounds good. No, I appreciate you being here. Sorry to hear that you were stricken, like many, it seems, in the last couple of weeks. So it's a rough time for everybody. But thanks again for being here. Anyone else just want to jump in, thinking about what's working, what's not related to history? Are there programs or elements that you think could be strengthened? Adolph, I see you're off of mute. Would you like to jump in? Guess not. Okay, I'm gonna start calling on other. Oh, Crystal Williams, please.
Oh, hi, I'm Crystal Williams. One of the things I think that is, I'm not from Fayetteville, but I married a gentleman from Fayetteville, and I moved here from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We met in college at A&T, but he is the church history. I attend John Wesley United Methodist Church, and so I know that in the past, way back in the building days, that the church was very much involved with the community through a lot of the civil rights things that were going on there. I know that right down the road, almost a block over, is Smith Chapel, and I know that they are very involved. And then there's Peace Memorial, that's less than a block over. And so a lot of times the three of us, oh, and then also there's right across from Fayetteville State. I'm looking at that church.
Mount Sinai.
Mount Sinai, yes. A lot of times we all work together. We don't really have a specific, specific name for a program, but what we do have is unity. We'll say, well, let's come together and we'll do unity in the community. And Kingdom Impact also will join in. And then there's a couple of other little small churches along the way that are, my grandma would call them the storefront churches that's along the way, and they would join in. The church across from E.E. Smith, we just all join in together and say, we're going to do this big unity in the community. The Umanja Festival is another
Umanja, yeah.
Umanja, yes, ma'am. Another great opportunity when the community comes together and Emoji. That's it right there. Yes, that's it.
Yeah. I always spell this wrong, so bear with me.
That's it.
Yeah, I come together and just do things. It's not really, everything doesn't really have a specific program name, but there's a lot of things that's working together for the good of the community through the faith-based organizations that's right along in there. I can't count how many churches are right there in that block. There's a lot of them. Yeah. So that's my take.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. We've talked about that previously with the steering committee and kind of like what the role of the churches should be going forward and helping to provide programs. And in this case, thinking about the history and the image and that kind of element of the neighborhood. So thank you for bringing that up again. So you can tell this is my first working group meeting out of the 15 because I forgot to do the little poll that I wanted to have you all do right before we got into the worksheet here. So I'm going to bring this up, and just to get a little bit of information from you all, you can go ahead and click on the first question, which is tell us about yourself. I live in the neighborhood. I work in the neighborhood. I go to school in the neighborhood. My organization serves people in the neighborhood. I live outside the neighborhood, but I'm interested in its future. So you can click your answer right in Zoom, and it should tell us. I don't see anybody doing it yet. Again, this is our first one, so we work out the kinks. Are you all able to see the poll on your screen?
Yep.
Okay, here it comes.
I want to say I know everybody on the call, but I'm not sure I know who Angela is.
Please stop.
I'm sorry. This is my first time joining in. I was put in touch with Ms. Leaks. She just gave me the Zoom information. My family owns some property on Murchison Road, and I don't live there. I've not lived there for many years, but we've just, my grandfather kind of built a few things a long time ago, and I know he'd probably be disappointed at this point where it is. And so I guess as this third generation, I was just trying to listen in and see where thoughts were and where things might be going. It is a bit, I grew up there in high school, but just kind of see how things have fallen off. I think Fayetteville State has done a tremendous job in trying to keep the community uplifted. But there's just so much more that can be done down there. And so, like I said, I'm just kind of putting my ear in and listening to things and seeing, if there's ever any place where I can jump in or help. But this is my first time hearing about it. So I just wanted to see what the conversation was about.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
This is our first meeting as well, so you're in good company.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah, perfect timing. Yeah, so yes.
Hi, everybody. How y'all doing?
Hey, good.
Everybody.
Hey,
all right. Hey, look, you got the two questions there in your survey, but I think a third one would be for those of us that even attend church in that community. So there's people that's connected to that area that do not live in there, but we're vested in it.
Yeah.
And you might be good to know who those folks are and how many folks that have that type of connection.
Yeah, it's good suggestion. I'll add that to the future polls for the other meetings. But it's interesting to see just a kind of a snapshot of who's on the call. So a lot of folks who are with an organization that serves the neighborhood, or they may live outside but are interested in the future. We have a couple of residents that definitely live within the boundaries, and one person who works in the neighborhood as well. So it seems like we're fairly well connected, with most people knowing at least half the people on the call. So I wanted to put this in here, not necessarily for this group because it's a little smaller, but we do have a couple of our groups, housing and the education group, are like pushing 30 people. So we wanted to be able to get a snapshot. So thank you for doing that. I want to move us forward here with the conversation. So let's think about what's not working in the neighborhood, especially related to the image. Now, I know when I came into this project a year ago, people told me certain things about the Murchison corridor, the Murchison community, based on perceptions. So, I'm interested in hearing from you all. What is the image and the history kind of portraying about the neighborhood that isn't working?
Can I add one more thing to what is working? We neglected to mention the Recreation Center, Seabrook Smith Center. I don't know the intricate details of all the programs they have there, but even during COVID, they seem to, every time I've been by there seem to be people from the community participating in one way or the other there. In the summertime, of course, they've got that really nice pool there. And, of course, I'd like to see, I guess we can move over to what's not working. I'd like to see the baseball, diamond reappear, softball games, and, athletics, seem to be an area that, has kind of faded away. And that would be, I'll dovetail into one of my negatives about Fayetteville State. Fayetteville State being the hub of this corridor, they offer great programs, they offer great opportunities, but they seem to have left out the younger generation as far as after school programs and summer programs and for instance, the Upward Bound program, which was was a very, very good program that was for high school students to attend the Upward Bound program. And then and correct me if I'm wrong, in the national sports program that they used to offer in the summertime. Now, I do know that, these are probably federally funded programs, and over the years, they were kind of, drifted away, but, maybe perhaps we need to, kind of include those programs, because we've never had, as far as I know, a boys and girls club in our community, but I do know Fayetteville State played a big role in the growth of the boys and girls in this community, i.e. the national sports program that was held on that campus every year in the summertime. Mm-hmm. And that was for all ages, and all kids alike. And the Upward Bound program, to name another program off the top of my head. So those are some of the things that we're lacking in. We don't have enough programs for the children in this corridor. Mm-hmm. Enough activities for them to participate in. And the way I believe that you get the adults to participate is through youth programs, and try to get them interested in things like that.
Got it. Thank you.
I agree with you, Miss Cynthia, because like I said, my children, when I first moved here, that's where we lived in Broadale, and they I had three. The three all attended Ferguson Easley. They went to Nick Gerald's, and then they went to E.E. Smith, and I have two that graduated from Fayetteville State. So my children grew up in that neighborhood. So back then, Fayetteville State did have the summer, I forget what it's called, ISE or something they went to in the summertime that they attended. Then my daughter went to Upward Bound, but then there was no Boys and Girls Club. And because I work for United Way, I know kind of why. And that's because there wasn't enough students to catch the bus to go to the Boys and Girls Club. And we didn't have a hub right there, like, it's off of Rowan Street, the recreation center off Rowan Street. We didn't have a hub. So if we had a hub that was at I don't live over there anymore, but if there was a hub at Smith Recreation Center, that would have been awesome for the kids. Now, some children who were fortunate enough to be able to play sports and were really good at E.E. Smith or in the marching band, then they had an after school activity. But there were a lot of children who were not involved because they weren't in the band and they didn't play sports, and so that leaves you room for trouble. So I agree with you. You have to get the parents somehow involved with that, and I don't mean to take away from the discussion by going on and on about E.E. Smith, but I think that
it's okay.
Yeah, that I think that's a start, because that was one of the things when I first moved here. The older ladies in the neighborhood in Broadale were like, well, the kids will go to Ferguson Easley, and then the kids will go on to E.E. Smith, and one will play sports, and one will be in the marching band, and the other one will, she'll just fit in. And so I had them at all different levels. I just know that it's important to bring that atmosphere back to that community. So
thank you for sharing that. That's really insightful, thinking about the different generations as they come through, and how they how everybody has different programs available to them at the various schools. So thank you for sharing that. I want to kind of move on to the secondary topic here, and again, these things are very well connected, but let's talk about equity and inclusion here. So how do you think the history of racial inequality affects the neighborhood to this day? Are there concerns around gentrification or displacement that you're hearing or you think about? And then how has the historic lack of public funding affected the community over time? And, I don't want to always be reflecting on the past, but it's important for us to recognize some of the effects of the past, both good and bad, because we want to know, what worked in the old days and what may not be working based on some of those questions. So I'd love to hear some feedback on that piece of it as well. Who would like to go first? Cynthia, do you want to?
Well, I can talk all day, but I won't. Yes. Adam, you said when you first came, just your walk through the corridor, I'm sure, just like everyone else, you can see that funds were depleted or taken out of the community for what reason or another. I don't know. I've been gone too, but I do know that the basics don't change, and they shouldn't change. When you remove this type of funding, it creates inequity. Period. That has, in my opinion, and also from speaking with folks in the corridor, just random people who live here and grew up here, and people who have moved here within the recent 10 to 12 or 15 years. There are no programs here for what we were just talking about, for boys and girls and even adults. There just aren't any. And so that means that the area has become, dormant to these, types of programs. Nothing is going on. So you've got two groups of people that we're talking about here. We're talking about people like me and Miss Crystal and Johnette and everybody who grew up over here or have been over here for a long time. And over the years, we all had our jobs. We were all raising our families. And now you look back and you see where things have changed so drastically. Well, that's, to me, in my opinion, there was just no type of, it's just like we don't exist over here. And that was some of the feedback that I've got from some of the people. We just feel like unheard. We don't exist, and it stem and and it does stem from that it being by us being a historically Black area. I mean, we can only call it what it is, and how we feel that because we are a historically Black community. These programs just suddenly went away. So when I talk about two different groups, you're talking about the people that grew up here, and now we must include people who did not grow up here. They live here now. Well, these are newcomers to the area. Whether you've been here 5 years, 7 years, 6 years, you're used to it being a certain way, whereas you really should not be, because it's such a historical area. And, these programs really, it's important that some of these things come back, and we try to make a way to bring it back in order to preserve some of the history in this area. So I don't know. I say all of that to say, yes, it has created racial inequity because it is a historical Black community. It has changed over the years, because people grow up, people move out, they raise their families, they live in different areas. But what about the people that were left here? And what about the newcomers who desire to stay here? So those are some of the questions that, need to be addressed, and the direction that, maybe we can, take a walk down that memory lane that way, thinking of what has happened in the past, and also, comparing it to what we have living in our corridor and the desires, that people want now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing that. I saw A.H. Thomas had their hand up. I think that is Ms. Ann Thomas, but I'm not sure.
That is Ms. Ann Thomas. Good afternoon.
Hi.
I apologize for my tardiness. I had a few other engagements, but I wanted to add, I am the Adolescent Parenting Program Coordinator of Cumberland County. And so the Murchison Road corridor is especially special to me, and I'm interested because I have quite a few clients that live along that way. I do know just by looking, when I first got here, riding down Murchison Road was the place where there were nice homes. The Fayetteville State was there. It was just a beautiful place. After a period of time, when you say Murchison Road, you think crime. I see food deserts there. There's no banking on Murchison Road. And then when you take a closer looking, like Ms. Leeks was saying, it's a Black neighborhood. And so we have to figure out a way so that it's not looked upon as a Black neighborhood, because when you say Black neighborhood, then some people may think, why pour money there? There's a lot of crime there. There's a lot of this there. There's a lot of that. But I think that if we look at the bigger picture, there are a lot of things there that most neighborhoods have, that most neighborhoods need, that are not there for the people of that area, whether it's historically, whether we look at the racial divide or look at how things have been handled, or how Murchison Road has perhaps not been included because they were a Black neighborhood. I think that's something that certainly we need to look a little deeper at. And I think is this the round 2 for strategy and project? Was it still round 1?
We're still in round 1 here, so we're getting there.
Okay.
Thank you for that feedback. That's really important to hear. It's interesting hearing when you say that it used to be a really positive first impression when you came into the community, and how that may have changed over time. I'm also interested to know a little bit more about what you all think related to the important history of the neighborhood, and also kind of the history from way back, but also moving up through the civil rights era. And if there are certain elements of that are working pretty well. I know we have MLK Park, which, that's a public space, that's an open space that's dedicated to history. There are some memorial kind of historic plaques in a couple places along the corridor, but I'd like to broaden the discussion a little bit more around that topic of history, civil rights, and get a little bit of your thoughts on that. And I see we do have a couple new people that have joined us as well, so feel free to unmute yourself and just jump right in.
Hey, Adam, I think one of the things we might want to consider is the transition from that past community to where we are now. When you look at the retired teachers, the retired military guys and ladies that owned homes here, had that high pride in the community, and now those folks have transitioned. And even their retirement pay is not even keeping up with the cost of living. So it could, cause for houses to diminish in the way they look and the upkeep of the community. I remember Moses Best, who was really strong with keeping the community watches strong, and those kind of folks aren't not here as much anymore. I don't know, Cynthia, you can expound on that one, because I know you remember Mr. Best. Who recently passed. So I think that's a big part of it, that the income that's coming in right now for most folks is not keeping up with being able to keep a neighborhood as updated as we like to see it.
I agree with you, Adolph, on that, because when you look at our parishioners at John Wesley United Methodist Church, many of them still live in Broadale, and some of them have passed on, and their children are now the homeowners. Well, the children have moved on, and now it's become rental property. And so when it becomes rental property and the landlord lives in Connecticut, then the upkeep is not taken care of. And then you have the children who still live there, but they're, like Adolph says, their income is not what mom and daddy made. And so I think a lot of what is making it look run down is the income, because we do an outreach at our church where we go over, and the men of the church go over and do a lot of the land keeping for the upkeep landscape of some of our parishioners. So I think that's one of the things. And then you have the grandchildren who are there with the grandparents, and some of them have gone astray, and that causes a lot of the negativity to be in the neighborhood. They're hanging out on the corner because there's nothing else to do. And I could go on and on and on, but I'm going to stop right there.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to move us to the second page here. You'll see a lot of these things just kind of flow together. But if we can think about desired outcomes, okay, so a desired outcome is what we hope to achieve from this plan. What would some desired outcomes be related to history? What should we be trying to achieve by creating projects in this group related to history? Are we trying to tell a story? Are we trying to, bring people to the neighborhood? Are we trying to uplift, forgotten moments? Like, what do you all think we should really be trying to achieve related to history?
About increased community pride.
That's a great one. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I think for the most part, most of the citizens on Murchison are prideful of where they're from and the communities there. But there possibly could be some other things that could be put in place, such as I think we were talking about the mobile library thing or some beautification projects that will at the same time begin to enforce or encourage a new type of pride, such as, cleaning up our, certain parts of the neighborhood, whether it's my part of the neighborhood or not. We need all this litter picked up. We need this stuff done. And as a group, we will organize that in ourselves, because we have this new pride that we have.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Other outcomes. So if we can look back a couple years from now at what this plan was able to achieve, what do we want that to be?
This is Jennifer from the Health Department. Hi, Miss Ann. And I was thinking about, as I'm really just listening today, but as people were talking about how history has impacted things like banking and housing and maybe even loans and what people get for their homes and rental properties, I think an important outcome will be related to that community pride, but sort of flipping the perception such that in making it, having such a sense of pride that it impacts the outcomes on maybe even loans or the grocery stores or the businesses or the banks that want to come into the community. So we've changed all the perception of it so that people's wanting to be a part of the community, particularly from the business standpoint, isn't negatively impacted, if I'm making any sense at all about that.
No, you're making a lot of sense there. Just the outsider's view of the neighborhood currently kind of puts up a wall in terms of people that might want to invest in the area, or they're more reluctant to do so. So projects that we develop through the plan should help to flip that perception to unlock some of the economic development potential. I think that's what you're getting at, but I don't want to.
Yeah, you said it a lot nicer and better than I did. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for Jennifer. The other big outcomes, like what's the bullseye from your point of view for these topics around history, equity, and inclusion? I'm going to call on a couple of people who haven't spoken yet. There, at least one person. Raven, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. One thing that comes to mind for me is economic mobility and how equity and inclusion impacts residents, or as Cynthia said earlier, newcomers and those who perceive or have perceived Murchison Road as, with a negative connotation, but they're there in that area. How do we use, the history that we have and looking at how to achieve equity and inclusion in the area? How can we do that to ensure that those citizens and people in the area have economic mobility or a chance at improving their quality of life in that area?
Great. Thank you. Other big desired outcomes? And we can always come back to this as well, I think. I'm just interested from your perspective and our perspective as a working group. Before we dive into coming up with ideas about how to to meet the challenges, I think we need to establish what is that goal line we're trying to cross there. So far, we have increased community pride and ownership through organization, flipping the perception, impacting outcomes related to economic development, economic mobility for both residents and newcomers. Are there other big things that you think we're missing here yet?
Adam, let me say one more thing. I think we're off to a great start. I still keep thinking about history, and you're focusing on history. There are a lot of firsts in this community. I don't know if the folks on that are listening are aware. It just takes a simple Google. I was looking into some information on E.E. Smith, and you know, everybody else may have known, but I didn't know. I didn't go to E.E. Smith. I went to Terry Sanford, but you know, I've always been considered myself a product of this community as far as E.E. Smith is concerned. But he was he did a lot back in the day for this community. You know, when you say history, I guess you're trying to link what people did in the past, some of the firsts that did whatever, you know, it may have been, and, you know, try to bring it forward, because history does create pride. And I think it's very important what Adolph said about pride. You know, when you have pride in your upbringing and your surroundings, then that creates beauty and belonging and all of the above. And so E.E. Smith, to me, you know, he was one of the first presidents at Fayetteville State. You know, they called it a normal school. So, you know, some of the history over here, my neighbor across the street, she was one of the first, she was the first African-American that worked at Social Security here. You know, two rows over, the first Black colonel lived over here, the United States Army. You know, I'm thinking if you want, you know, to look at it from a historical point of view, to pull pride out and to teach, I don't know where it got lost, but, you know, well, I know where it got lost. Like he said, a lot of the people have died out and moved on, but it's up to us to pull out all of this information so it can still resonate with people, so that will instill pride. You know, yeah, it's old history, but if you just take a walk 2 miles down the road to the historical, the museum, Special Forces Museum, you'll see a lot of it down there. You know, we're crunched right here between downtown and Fort Bragg. So I don't know, I'm just throwing this out, you know, how you know, history, you know, can pull, you know, how we can focus on history as well as, you know, the economic growth and all of that good stuff in back into the corridor. And by that, I mean, you know, showcasing some of the specifics that we have a lot of first folks around here. And I don't mean to, you know, I'm not keeping it, I don't mean to like put us in a bubble that, you know, it's a Black area, African-American area, Negro area, however you want to put it, but that's just the bottom line of what it is. You know, I can't help but use the term redline. We were redlining this area, and for a reason. And now that reason really needs to shine, because it, you know, it may not have been, it was probably not a good thing then, but, you know, how many of us have turned not so good things into positive things? We are challenged with that every day. So I just thought I'd throw that out. Chestnut, and Chestnut, the Easley people, we have a lot of history here that somehow we can bridge over into what we're asking for now to occur in order to, you know, showcase our area.
That's
it
great.
looks like the next question is about gentrification too.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Raven, I see the links you posted in the chat, so I appreciate that. I'll take a look at those. I think this is a good segue into starting to talk about ideas. So we have a little more than a half hour left in the call here, and I'd love to start brainstorming some solutions, strategies. So I'm going to call on, since we have a smaller group here, I'm going to call on everybody, and I'd really like you to give me one or two ideas related to history or equity and inclusion that you might have. And that idea, if we have two columns here. So what is the idea? And has it been done somewhere else that you've seen or you've been? You know, maybe the idea is a historic walking trail, and you can say, well, I saw the trail that they had in Raleigh, and that's a good precedent for what we want to do. So I see Johnette has her hand up. She's coming to the table with ideas. Just jump right in.
I sort of wanted to reflect on, Cynthia probably can help with this if my voice goes out, the designation of Broadale and the surrounding areas as historical communities. And has it been done successfully somewhere else? Yes, I think it's been done in the Haymont area, where it's a designated historical neighborhood or site. And I think that same type of designation for the Murchison Road corridor would help with the flipping the scenario in terms of, or the stigma associated with Murchison Road not being a nice place to live. I remember when it was a nice place to live. My grandparents lived in the 1600 block, and it was thriving back in the day. So now when I ride down Murchison Road and I see the dilapidated homes and the, some of the storefront stores not in their most pristine state, it begs the question, what's going on here? What can we do to change this? First of all, it shouldn't be acceptable. Is there a code enforcement issue going on? Or is there, something that we can do to work with the homeowners to do better? My property included. It's a bunch of us that own that one piece of property. And the majority of them don't live here. And we need to do better so that we can, represent the community appropriately.
Thank you, John. So where did you say it was done successfully elsewhere in town?
Haymont Hill.
Haymont, yeah.
Haymont.
Great.
Yeah, that's excellent, Johnette. I forgot all about that. We've already had training on that as well, Adam, and I can give you the updates on that, at a later time.
Great. So I'm going to go down the list here. So Adolph, do you have any ideas, strategies, projects for either history or equity and inclusion that you think we should be considering here?
No, I actually don't. I think the ladies hit on it really, really well, especially those designations where we refer to as like the whole Vietnam term needs to disseminate as we begin to put more prestige on such areas as Broadale or other subdivisions that are inside the area. I think that will enhance that community pride piece again even further. But what would be the result of promoting other businesses to reside in this corridor? A lawyer's office, an accountant's office, and how would that change the dynamics of how things will begin to look, because it's now their investment as well as ours.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're onto a thread there about promotion for new businesses. Are you kind of suggesting a program for promotion?
I don't know. I mean, at one time. I don't know. At one time, and I think, Chris and Alex can tell you, we had programs that we gave incentives to businesses to locate in those areas, with our small businesses in Michelle. But I don't know if it really took it was either not given the opportunity, or it was just totally like, we're not moving there regardless to what you're going to give us, Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe incentives need to be pushed a little bit better. I don't know what would make that work, but that's just an idea that I thought that would increase activity for our area.
And do you,
And
is there,
yes,
sorry,
Mr.
sorry,
Talbot.
I just have one quick follow-up. So is there a place where you've seen that happen successfully, either in Fayetteville or in an area kind of similar to the Murchison community?
I don't know. I'm actually, even though I've been in Fayetteville longer than I've been in the place that I was born, I do freaking home a lot. And we did Hope 6 in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And part of Hope 6 was to create business areas like we were trying to do once over on for Hope 6 area. But it did bring just that element in. Those guys came, they flooded right into that community, from doctors' offices to lawyers' offices. And believe me, that it really changed the households and the structure of the neighborhood by a long shot, to include public transportation.
That's great. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. 'Cause I'd love to be able to do a little more research on some of these places that you have seen have, had successful outcomes. And then that's how we learn as a group. So thank you for that.
Hey, Adam.
Yeah, Janet, go ahead.
Another place where that's been successful is actually Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
It's on the south side of Richmond, Virginia. And if we want some information on that, I know a city council person that could really give us some insight.
Tell me more about that. Was that the result of a certain type of initiative or related to business recruitment?
It was actually a spinoff of a Hope 6 project too.
Okay.
That worked in back in the I think that was the 90s when I was there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I'm gonna keep going on the list here. So Ms. Thomas, do you have any ideas for strategies related to either of these topics?
Well, first I wanted to ask Mr. Thomas if there had been any studies in Fayetteville, because we've witnessed the businesses on the corridor come and go. There was Walmart right there on the corner. Was there any studies done to find out exactly why Walmart left and what could be done to bring a business back? I mean, have there been any studies about why businesses don't flourish or don't make it in that area?
Yeah, that's kind of a two-pronged question. The first related to Walmart, we have information around that, and folks from the city may be able to share that on the call here. The second part is we will be doing a market study for commercial business development as part of this process. So they will be looking at the history and the dynamics and what can be supported currently in the corridor and what types of businesses. So that's kind of wrapped up into this. But Chris, I didn't know if you wanted to touch on the Walmart piece.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of insight into why they chose to leave or not leave. I can share with you that my personal experience. I used to shop when I lived in Charlotte at a Harris Teeter that had 4 cops every day. If folks can make money, they'll make money and they'll stay open. And so as easy it is to beat up on ourselves in Fayetteville or to say that it might have been somebody's fault or something like that, I just think at the end of the day, if a business isn't making profit, they're not going to stay open. And having said that, though, the folks who helped build that shopping center, I speak with very frequently, and they are working to try to figure out how to open up a grocery store there because they are losing money on their investment. They're hurting just as much as the community is, just in a different way. They need that store to get open back up so that they can, pay for building the place and taking care of it and all that stuff. So that's absolutely it. And Adam, I love to tie into the market study because that is a piece that comes out of that, is that we can show potential other grocery stores or Walmart or whomever what that customer base would look like in this area.
Yep. Ms. Thomas, did you have any other thoughts on that? Either a project idea or somewhere where you've seen it successful?
I'm thinking.
Okay. No, I don't. You can jump in anytime. So let me
you.
go. I'm going to go down the list here to Ms. Williams. Crystal?
Hi. I really don't have a lot of anything else to add. I think that Ms. Leaks and it was Miss Janetta have done an awesome job in talking about and Mr. Thomas and Miss Thomas in talking about bringing the business back and comparing the Murchison Road area to the Haymont area. Even when you're looking at the recreational activities, and I speak a lot about the young people, but it's because I have a house full of them. But with that being said, when you look at the activities that are offered at the different recreation centers, and I'm also on the Parks and Recs board, but when you look at what's offered at the different recreation centers, there's a lot of variances in the activities that are offered at Smith Recreation Center versus what's offered at even College Lakes and at Pine Forest and in the Haymont area. When you look at the splash pads, it's a little different. Smith Lake does have the swimming pool, but I'm just saying there's a lot of differences, and when people are see that, there's a perception of how this community feel about us.
Yep.
And say us, but there's that perception. And so, hey, if no one else cares and we have that mentality, why care kind of thing going. I said I didn't have anything else to add, but with that being said, that's what I think that we need to take a good look at what's going on here versus what's going on right there, you know?
Yeah, that's a great suggestion to see how Smith Rec kind of stacks up with the other recreation centers in the area in terms of programs that are being provided. Maybe there's some way to, through this plan, improve the offerings at Smith. And it sounds like you lean a little bit more towards programs for the youth. You think are missing more than anything?
As well as adults, families, those kinds of activities. I don't see the soccer going on at Smith, but I see it at College Lakes. And even if they have to take them to another field, they have a soccer team. I don't see the softball. And like I said, my grandkids play sports, so I know where the different locations are, and I don't see that happening at Smith Lake. So, and I'm saying family sports, adult sports, and youth sports. So,
okay, thank you for that. Thank you. I want to go ahead.
I want to flip back to the offering of programs around developing businesses in the corridor. If there are opportunities at the city level, is there a way that we can get that, host some informational sessions or something? Because in going out and trying to recruit people to be a part of the work groups, I've gotten a lot of questions about, well, I wanted to start this business on Murchison Road, but I don't know, I need funding to get started. I don't know where to go. And, I'm just getting back here after 25 years of being in Virginia. So I don't know where to tell people to go. So that type of information, just sharing of the existing opportunities and how, people want to do things and they're a part of the community. They just don't know how to get it started. Yep. So it's almost a business incubation project or something probably with Fayetteville State and the city coming together as partners. That would be awesome. So
yeah, that's a good point. And I think we know that FSU is moving their business hub incubator over to Bronco Square. And I think the time is right to explore the role of that facility in the neighborhood and what part it can play with Choice Neighborhoods to help kind of move some of these project ideas forward. But I think what you're hitting on in terms of the communications of what programs are currently available and how do we get the word out and help people to tap into that. I think that's a good suggestion for a strategy here. Thank you. I want to go back to history again. all we have so far is potentially designating part of the neighborhood as historic. But what else? How else would you celebrate the rich history of the community?
I think when we were doing the community meetings and we were having the neighborhood talks, someone mentioned about doing almost having like a slogan campaign and a festival to sort of kick it off, that the revitalization is here. And it's not, it's not a branding thing that's just going to be, fly by night. We do it one time, but it sort of seeps into the fabric of the community. So I think that we have to keep in mind. We have to speak that language and speak positively across the board about the corridor.
And so, can you think of an area that had struggled with their perception and had achieved success through a campaign like this? Anything come to mind?
Nothing comes to mind right off the back of my head. Give me.
If anybody can think of something like that, we'd love to plug it in here.
Well, I'm pretty sure that for most of the churches in the corridor, they maintain a history. You can probably go in there and they have a history book from the day they were inception to where they are now. And it's like, for instance, my church actually started about 4 or 5 blocks away from where it is. And it evolved to where it is now, sitting on the Merc right now, which to me was a great achievement for those guys to take 20, 30, almost 50 years to put money together to build a bigger sanctuary where they could be more seen and can connect to more people. So I think maybe using church histories could also bring about names of folks who were a catalyst in making the community better.
Great suggestion. So you're thinking about like almost a research project related to bringing all that information together?
I think that could be done. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody'd be glad to offer their history books. And then of course there's a gentleman, oh my God, I can't think of his name right now, who actually wrote a history on Murchison Road.
Frank.
Who say that? What's his name, hon?
Frank. What's his name? Frank.
Fred.
Yeah.
What is Fred's last name? Come on, you guys. Y'all know who he is. Fred Whitted.
Fred Whitted.
Yeah.
Whitted.
Yeah. And he's a member of the church up on Danbury. But he wrote an extremely intense history book on Murchison Road and the folks that's inside of every teacher, every preacher, you name it, that had something to do with the development of that community.
Yeah, that's great. Love to get our hands on that.
Give me that name again, please.
Fred Whitted. He spells it Whitted.
Don't you have a copy of that?
Yeah, I actually purchased a copy of it. I did.
Was he Mr. Whitted, the teacher? Was he a teacher?
No, he was not. He was not an educator that I know of.
Okay.
I don't know what made him to go about doing that, other than the fact that he was aware that the history for the community was not brought out. It was not spoken of.
Yeah.
And so he took it upon himself and went from person to person, personal interviews, you name it. And the book is very thick.
Oh wow! I would love to see. I would love to get that book.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know about that. That's great. Okay, who hasn't had a chance to share here their project ideas? Let's see, Jennifer, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. This is really not necessarily related to the history piece, but maybe the equity, certainly the equity and inclusion piece, and isn't really the health department. I think I mentioned this probably several months back at one of our early meetings, is that the health department is getting some funding from the state to address health equity. So it's not specific to equity in general, but I could make the argument that it could be, but it's for us to do some internal work at the health department related to equity and inclusion, but also externally related to equity, and making sure that the services that we provide in health in general in the community is equitable, and that we are doing some of the things that were mentioned earlier in the community. And so for example, I could think of as a strategy, the mention about making sure new businesses are aware of all of the requirements, the zoning and the coding, but also that might be something related to the health department, because we if you're building a new restaurant, you have to work with our health department staff. And what are we doing to make sure that new businesses that want to open up a restaurant in the corridor are aware of that, of the restaurant requirements for food inspection. So projects that think about that. So we are in the process of hiring an individual, and we need somebody. We're limited on applications that we received, and the position is needs to have a health educator background. But I want to put the position in the chat box because we're eager to get started on the work, and I think would be really interesting for us to work with this team. And of course, I'm on the steering committee, and we'll certainly continue to do that. But that person, I think, would be really interesting to work with this work group as they think about equity and inclusion, and things that we learn from this group could be, replicated across the city. So I'm going to put the link to the chat box and sort of the initiative that we have funding for, the 2 years of funding for. So
great. Thank you for sharing that opportunity. We'll definitely take a look at it and try to help spread the word.
And I sent it to Dominique, maybe, I don't know, before the end of last year. But if you know anybody, we'd love to have people apply for the position.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have about 10 more minutes. Any other ideas? These are initial ideas. We're gonna have a whole nother meeting in February to kind of get more into the weeds on some of these, but just want to continue to brainstorm. Like what can we do related to history to celebrate? What types of programs can we investigate around equity and inclusion? And where have you seen some of these successful in other places? Okay. Hearing none. Does anybody have any other thoughts, comments? Okay. Cynthia, go ahead.
Me. I just had an idea, but I just thought, E.E. Smith from, I don't know all the fine details, but I think everybody on here has heard that they are going to be building a new school at some point. It's going to be relocated, which I applaud that 100%. But what I do have, I am wondering what's going to happen to that existing building. I think it's a historic building. I believe that our neighborhood, the reason why the programs left and learned by living here, you have to meet the people where they are, so we're a great topic on bringing, the activities, the whatever, the dog parks, the splash parks and everything to the area. So with that in mind, what is going to happen to that empty building? Well, that we could put that on the radar. I don't know, Chris, the powers that be downtown could probably put some feelers out to see what's going to happen to that building, and maybe we can host some of, training people on safety first in the restaurant business. All of those classes and things and ideas You can go over to Fayetteville Tech, I'm sure, and learn those things, but why not bring those small, activities and the small classes that people need to, run first.
Mm-hmm. That's a great suggestion. I think
whenever they're trying to people, you know what I mean, right here in the community. So, I don't know. I just thought I'd throw it out there because I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some discussion down the road on what they're going to do with that building.
Yeah.
And it already has classrooms. It's got, where I've seen it happen before. Well, my kids were in AAU basketball, football, and all of that stuff. How much money do we spend in AAU? There again, activities for kids. They need a place to play. How often do you have to pay all of those fees, which parents pay fees for their kids to participate, but they host tournaments, they host this, they need that, they need all kinds of things, just throwing out some ideas for that building that can be preserved historically, and also serve, tie into economic growth for the surrounding areas.
Yeah, and have you visited a place that was a former high school that is now being used for that type of thing?
If I recall, it's either Sampson or Chatham County. What is Hillsborough? It's Hillsborough, North Carolina, whatever county that is.
That's Chatham.
I'm sure it was an old school. I had. Was that is that Chatham County?
It's Chatham.
It was turned into like a little sportsplex, and of course, the competing teams were from all over the North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. AAU is all over the East Coast. And that's where the tournaments would be held. It's sort of self-sufficient as well, because you do have to pay these certain teams, all teams have to, so they kind of generate their own income there. But I was more thinking about that as far as the sports side of it, but there are plenty of classrooms over there. You could teach anything to anybody in the community, flower arrangement classes, food first, all of these classes that people need, and pay a small fee to get a certificate. All they would need to do is, walk down to the historically preserved E.E. Smith High School,
yep.
Take the class. And I know the Economic Development Department, they hosted several workshops and things at Smith Center. Well, it could actually turn into an all-day workshop. Just all kinds of things can be done over there. Just an idea.
That's a great one to pursue. I think getting
ahead. I mean, down the road, we don't know what's going to happen, but hey.
Right, but having a plan in place, that's kind of what it's all about. Yeah. So, great, thank you for that. So we just have about 5 more minutes. Just want to make sure that everybody gets their final thoughts in, and we will be reconvening in February. But before we go, let me share with you the meeting schedule so everybody knows what's going on. And this was in your initial email too, so you should have this. The second meeting will be February 7th, and the third meeting will be March 7th. And I'm going to follow up with the handful of people who signed up that weren't able to make this meeting, and make sure that we get their feedback as well, and try to get them to attend the second meeting. But just wanted to thank you all for this brainstorming session. I think we got a lot achieved in an hour and a half. And I'm really excited to kind of see where we go from here, building on some of these projects. So what I'm going to do is start to organize some of this feedback and those project ideas and then try to incorporate some of the other ideas that we've received over the last year into these categories, so that when we come back in February, you all will see a list of 20, 25 project ideas or strategies. And then everyone in this group is going to have a chance to prioritize and kind of vote on those projects, so we can think about what really rises to the top in terms of our preferences. So again, thank you all for being here. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you all soon. Thanks again.